But what do countries need in order to be developed? What's the correlation between HDI and GII? We can clearly see that where HDI is higher, the GII is lower. Well, just because the HDI is already high, that doesn't mean countries should just stop trying. Hi everyone, my name is Megan Steinberg-Lazaretto, and these are some of the amazing questions and comments I heard in my 9th grade AP Human Geography classroom as my students collaborated to create maps that communicated Human Development Index and Gender Inequality Index information. The theme of this lesson was Map It. In groups, students researched the HDI and GII scores for each country in their assigned world region. I intentionally provided them with very little direction on how to communicate the data on their maps to allow for creativity. But the students were asked to display the data in a way that could be easily readable by others, and they were asked to include an accompanying map key. The students then answered questions like, what connections can you make between HDI and GII? What are your 3 major takeaways regarding HDI and GII in this region? And what does a country need to be developed? Before presenting their findings to the class. The National Geographic Framework attitude that is most evident in this lesson is youth deepen their awareness of the world and other people and see issues, problems, and solutions on a global scale. This activity requires students to consider the HDI and GII of countries with which they might not be familiar. They must consider the factors, issues, and problems that contribute to a potentially low or high HDI or GII in that place, challenging students to think outside their box and think at the global scale. Additionally, through this lesson, youth learn to understand the role culture plays in the development of individuals, groups, institutions, and societies globally. Students consider the role culture plays in the status and empowerment of women within a country or a world region. For example, students look at how many women serve in the national legislature, study the number of women in the workforce compared to men, and question how cultural beliefs can both allow for and hinder the status of women. Finally, in the lesson, youth learn that the distribution of natural resources and human populations on Earth determine patterns of global power and influence. In a larger sense, students are considering all of the factors that countries need in order to be developed. Countries need not only a high HDI and a low GII, gender equality, healthcare, and infrastructure, but also need access to resources and energy to progress on their path to development. As a result of this lesson, my students are able to have informed conversations regarding what countries need in order to become developed. We have been able to have rich discussions on what countries can focus on in order to continue on their path to development. Things like healthcare, education, sanitation, and rights for women. Following this lesson, the students completed an activity where they picked a country from their assigned region and created a plan for changes they would make to improve the level of development and gender equality in that country. I've learned new ways to allow students to grapple with data and communicate data via a map. I was nervous to give so few guidelines throughout the research and map-making process, but my students navigated the challenge well and thought of many different creative ways to communicate and display the information. They never cease to amaze me.